10 years ago, I became a magician. I didn't plan it, and I didn't see it coming, but I had prepared for it. I had closed myself off from the rest of the world, locked myself in my head, and kept everything I felt, every feeling that felt threatening, buried deep inside. One day my powers dawned on me and the whole world opened up. Life became vivid and bracing. Things that had once been impossible just started happening. I didn't see any boundaries anywhere. I had no inhibitions. I was freer than I had ever dreamed possible. For so much of my life, I'd been afraid of new situations, not sure of the rules everyone else seemed to know how to play by. But now I could wander into any room and immediately be the focal point, totally at ease with myself, like a winsome conductor, blissfully summoning the whole world around me into life. Whenever I left a room, I left feeling like everyone's day had just gotten more interesting. For so much of my life, I'd felt like wherever I went, I had to become someone other than myself. But now I was permanent. I was exactly who I was no matter what happened. All the problems I had buried stopped mattering at all. For so much of my life, I had wondered desperately where it was I was going and what I was supposed to do. But now I had a clear sense at every moment what to do and where to go next. A long-term plan didn't matter. The future was the next open door, and it always appeared just in time. I had never seen so much life. I had been sitting in the mud at the bottom of a mountain, and suddenly there I was at the top, surveying everything, ecstatic and finally free. But it was just a glimpse. Soon I woke in a hospital bed, shut down. The mountain I'd been on top of loomed before me, and it looked more like a wall. Whatever had made things so alive had abandoned me, and it was a total collapse. Quickly, I found out that my trip to the top had looked very different to everybody else. What felt to me like standing on top of a peak had looked to them like a dazed kid floating untethered through space. What felt to me like a dance through life looked like a 20-year-old coming completely unhinged. I'd scared my family and my friends to death. Doctors called it bipolar disorder with psychotic features. This is what others had seen. Not going to work, snapping my phone in half, breaking into a house to take a nap, wandering around shirtless in the rain for hours, stealing my mom's car and driving through the night all over Virginia, going a full 7 days without sleeping, writing unreadable messages all over books I'd bought, shouting obscenities at my dad over the phone and then breaking down in tears the next moment, creating a Facebook account for God, the next one good too. Throwing my wallet out the window of the car as I sped down the highway, and then trying to talk a police officer into giving me a ticket. So totally unhinged. After I'd collapsed, the mountain stared down at me higher than I could see. But it still looked glorious in a way. I still wanted what I'd had then. But I also started to feel like I wanted a normal life, or at least a healthy life. I wanted to engage, to feel, to think clearly, and to know I mattered. I knew I'd have to climb to get there. And that was when the slow and grueling process of recovery began. It took more courage than I knew I had, and more support than I'd ever needed before. I told myself there's peace on the other side of this storm. I told myself that if I move toward things, they'll work with me. I told myself maybe someday this will have been worth it. Every step I took, the road got a little more accommodating. I went back to school scared to death, but I finished. I moved out of my parents' house, leaving my two biggest supports behind, and survived. Things started to feel a little more vibrant. I started seriously reconsidering some of the rules and ideals that I bought into my whole life to find out what was right for me. I started letting myself feel some of the feelings I was so afraid would overwhelm me, and the world stayed intact. I didn't rocket up to the top, and I didn't collapse. Here's just a glimpse of where this story has taken me. So it's 7 years since my powers dawned on me the first time. I'm a graduate student training to become a counselor. I'm in a room full of people, and I see a woman stand up and introduce herself to the room and begin to describe a new program for young adults who have first started hearing things or seeing things that others can't hear or see, and believing things that don't make much sense to other people. I hear her say her team is on the cutting edge of treatment for first episode psychosis, and hear her say they make a point to take each client's own understandings of their experiences very seriously. I approach her when the meeting is over and ask if there are any positions available on her team. She says there's one. She says, we need someone who has been through these experiences, who can offer our clients someone to relate to. We need someone who can tell a story in their own words without any medical jargon that can help people who are terrified feel that they aren't alone. We need someone who can say, I get that this stuff is scary, and I get that you don't always want to talk about it, so let's just go play some basketball. We need someone who can advocate for these people's unique perspectives with the rest of the team. We need someone who will argue with us when the client wants something we don't think is best, or doesn't want something we think they need. Within a few weeks, I had a job, and it has transformed my life and my story over these 3 years. I was a magician back then, and there have been times when I've longed to have those feelings back, those powers back. I wanted to glimpse the view from the top of that mountain again. What I've realized now, though, is being a magician is only part of a full life. The peak of the mountain is just a part of an entire range. I'm a magician, but I'm also a partner, an explorer, an advocate, a mentor, a friend, a creator, and someone who feels really deeply the good and the bad and doesn't need to bury it. Now I get to have some of that beauty I glimpsed so long ago, and it's part of a full, beautiful, messy, emotional, healthy life. One filled with real, deep relationships, a wife who makes this world so much fun and so rich and so delightful, and a path that we're learning how to follow together. I get to have a job where I really make an impact. I get to tell a pretty amazing story, and I let God handle his own social media.